So I laid out the map of the different layers of your consciousness, of your being, of who you are. And we talked about healing happens at the most fundamental level, the energetic level. That's where the true gold is. And I want to step back a moment and say what kind of the healing process is facilitated by a willingness, first of all, a willingness to confront your inner pain, and that willingness, another way of thinking about that, and it's sort of primary, it's a necessary first step in the journey, is a willingness to stop. And that is 60% of the battle, 50%, I don't know. A huge percentage of this process is a willingness to stop, to be still. Because these defense mechanisms, these inner partitions that we have, they are held in place through ignorance, through ignoring, through distraction. You know, the human condition is, in a word, distraction. Another word would be addiction. And so we have all these patterns in us because we haven't been able to digest this material. Our consciousness just becomes the window of clarity in our consciousness just becomes smaller and smaller. It's like all this material accumulates and it kind of crowds out our clarity. And we become, sort of distorted and dysfunctional. It's amazing that we're able to function at all, really, when you consider how much stuff we're carrying inside of us. And we're constantly seeking relief from this, and that's really the addictive process, is we're looking for substitutes for true healing, true awakening. And that's what, that's sort of the underlying mechanism of addiction, is that search for peace, that search for wholeness. And so we look into all these different, but we're operating at that utmost level, that external most level of the world of objects, the world of form, and trying to, it's in a sense you could say it's always a spiritual search. If it's alcohol, if it's drugs, if it's work addiction, sex addiction, pornography, relationship addiction. It's looking for relief, for release from our pain. However, it's a counterfeit kind of relief that we get. It's a momentary relief. And so we get that relief from a hit, a dopamine hit, or whatever the drug of choice. Get that relief. But then unfortunately, we find that it's temporary, and the addictive process is like a inwardly coiling, tightening spiral. You become more and more entrapped. You have to up the dosage, so you just become more and more a slave to that process. So eventually you can become desperate enough, miserable enough to say, I need to do something different. And that is the stopping. coming out of, it's turning around to face all of that. It's a middle finger to the addictive process, to the human condition, in a sense, to our fallen nature, if you want to look at it in a Christian way. Original sin, that original, is it dukkha, I guess, unsatisfactoriness. And taking a stand, that really is the most, that's the most powerful, and it's like the precondition. It's the vehicle, it's the movement, it's that which facilitates this whole process of healing, is being willing to stop. So you can hear that on a superficial level, meaning stop physically doing anything. And here enters the utility of meditation, for example, which, among other things, is about physical stillness, is about stopping. I think we sense inwardly what we stand to lose and what we stand to confront when we stop. So that's why it takes courage, because as you become still, as you become physically still, as you stop your addictive patterns, it can be very intense. It's like you're running from a wildfire and you decide to stop. You confront the heat, you confront the fire, you start to get consumed by the fire, or you've got a tidal wave at your back, you stop. And maybe that's too intimidating of a way to phrase this, but it's the reality, it's the truth. And I think we sense that, and that's kind of why we just keep, maybe this last hit, maybe this last hurrah with alcohol will finally be, or with whatever the addiction pattern is, maybe this last time will be the one that fully heals me. And it's like we just keep going, keep trying it, hoping that, somehow it's gonna work, and it doesn't, and it sucks. I would not have designed, the design on all of this sucks. I would not have designed the game this way. In fact, I've got a laundry list of complaints, concerns, feedback, issues with the creator, with the designer, with the engineer of this thing called existence and life. I've got feedback. I would not have designed it this way. The design is just, it sucks. So we're chasing this illusory release, eventually, usually through lots of failure, usually through failure primarily, become desperate enough. It doesn't have to be this way, I guess. You can also just be motivated and gung-ho, but typically there's some kind of misery. Our lives become unmanageable. Is that an AA phrase? So that you decide, well, there's got to be something else, another way to do this. And there is. That's the good news, is that there is another way. And it's simple. It's very simple. It sucks. It's not easy necessarily. It's not immediate, but it is simple. And it's all facilitated by that foundational stop, that foundational stillness. And that stillness penetrates deeper and deeper and deeper. But it starts at the uppermost level physically of just becoming still. It's not a rigid stillness. You want to make your body comfortable. It's not even really a technique. Meditation, there's a different meditative techniques, and it's not really a technique. sort of an anti-technique. It's really just stopping. Just fucking stop. But it's not rigid. It's not about, that it's not like a Vipassana, or what is that, strong sitting, where you make a strong determination not to move. It's not at that level. It's good to be comfortable. It's about surrendering your will. Ultimately, it's about God's will being done in you, through you, as you. But it's softer, it's more gentle. The thing is, we have these nervous systems. This is another one of my design notes, feedback for the designer. We've got these extraordinarily sensitive nervous systems that mediate between the inner and outer world, that are designed to be, that are just so exquisitely sensitive, and we're thrown into this really harsh world, the lamb among the wolves. And so our nervous systems get just all gunked up, jammed up, wounded, overloaded. And so part of the process is healing, really the whole process is healing the nervous system. And it's just wild that this world just seems engineered, seems made to oppose this process. That's again what's just so revolutionary about stopping and the courage to stop, is because there's so much momentum behind our addictive patterns, and then our collective patterns. Such a velocity and a weight behind that momentum. And so much of this project is about healing the nervous system. Not ultimately, but it's because the nervous system sort of mediates inner experience and outer experience. And so the more peace you can bring to the nervous system, more gentleness, the more kindness, the more healing that's possible. So you don't want to be rigid. In a sense, it's scary saying stopping, but isn't that also just a huge relief to know that you're not going to make it through status, through money, through all the running around? The hamster wheel leads nowhere. And so there is a relief in that too, just knowing that the doorway is through stopping. And another word for stopping is relaxing. That's maybe a softer word. Just relax. Just stop. Just relax. Letting go is another word. And at a certain point, that may sound frightening. At another point, and maybe at the same time, but that's also a great source of relief. Shit, man, I can just let go of all this crap I'm carrying around. That's Christ. Come to me, all ye who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's what this is, rest. I feel just a little bit lighter just even saying that. And it's that rest, 50%, 60%, 70% of the journey is that stopping. And what that stopping does, what that surrender does, is it allows for all the lost children you have within you, all the stuff in the shadows, to come up, to come forward. It's like you're saying, I'm here, what do you have to say? Yeah, my mind just alive with so many different modalities. I don't have a background in internal family systems, but you dabble and you look into it, and you find as you go along on this process and you unlock things in your own experience, you can see how these other conceptual maps you can see what they're saying and what they're pointing to and how they're expressing kind of this universal pattern in their own language. But IFS talks about exiles, and the way I hear that is sort of talking about our shadow material, the things that are repressed. It's almost like when you have a difficult experience as a young person or at any point on the timeline, you fragment, you split, you form kind of a psychic boundary, psychic membrane, and you push that off into the background. It's almost like you are taking, it's almost like an aspect of yourself, who you were in that moment at that time, has been cast out. And they use the language of exiles, I think. Maybe not. I don't know if that's what they mean, but it's good language for this. It's as if a part of you has been exiled, and so another way of thinking about it is this journey is becoming a safe space. Becoming a welcoming, inviting place, putting out the invitation to yourself, really, that you can come home. And so these exiles, they sense that openness, and they start to come out of the shadows. They start to come home. It's not exactly like that. Obviously, it's somewhat metaphorical language, but it's also not so far from the truth, because it's amazing how these experiences throughout our life, these fragments, it's as if they're flash frozen, vacuum sealed, and they come back in their full vibrancy, which is really a wild discovery, that what you were feeling as a young person, these deep memories that you haven't felt for so long, and it's every level of experience. It's not just the deeper memories, but I'm just kind of riffing on that right now. But they come back exactly as they were left. It's like they haven't aged a day. And I guess this is also sort of healing the inner child. You hear that phrase, that approach. But they come back exactly as they were, and like all the vividness, emotional vividness, the feeling of what it was like to be embarrassed or ashamed or lonely or scared or fearful or whatever it was, it comes back. It's like flash frozen exactly as it was, frozen in the layers. Another metaphor, probably way too many metaphors here, but yeah, just like how you've got like a mummy or a woolly mammoth or something that gets frozen. They can be remarkably well preserved, I guess is what I'm saying. These memories, I don't really like that that metaphor, because these aren't like dead bodies or something, but they come back just as alive as they were when you kind of tucked them away unconsciously. And so the work, if you want to call it that, is welcoming them in and letting them unburden. They want to be liberated. If we're looking at the beach ball analogy, holding a beach ball down takes energy. Even if you've forgotten that that's what you're doing, it is taking energy to do that. It's active on some level. And so stopping and resting is just that. You relax, you take your hands off the ball, and it wants to surface, it wants to come up. Or if it's a shaken up soda can, it's like pulling the tab and all these bubbles start to come up. But these exiles come back, these lost aspects of yourself come back, and you just listen to them. You allow them to share their story. You just allow whatever comes up to come up. But you don't get lost, just like if it were a child that was in pain. You don't want to really get lost in analyzing. You want to love it. You want to connect with it. You want to be empathetic. You want to meet it at its frequency, meet it at its own level. And so that's the feeling tone level. A little bit of interaction can be helpful in a verbal sense, in a discursive sense. Like you can kind of inquire and ask what's going on with this bundle of emotions. If it's kind of confused, you can just ask, is this loneliness? Are you lonely? You can interact. I found sometimes it's helpful to interact with it as though it were a discrete other person external to you, another form of consciousness, and ask them what's going on. But don't get lost in that. Just keep it real simple. Try to find, is this loneliness? Is this pain? Is this anger? Sometimes it's really obvious, but sometimes just labeling it, oh, this is loneliness, will unlock that deeper level. You know that the process is working. You know that you're moving in the right direction if there's an emotional release. You know you're moving in the right direction if it's coming up at all. It doesn't feel good. It feels like crap because you've not wanted to feel these feelings, but feeling a little bit talked out, but you'll know that you're making progress if you're crying. Really, that's a great indicator. Is if you're grieving, if you're crying, because that's the alchemy, that's the metabolizing, that's the digesting, that's the liberation of the energy. There's an emotional release, an energetic release. Maybe your body is shaking, you're curled up into the fetal position, maybe you're flexing your muscles and crying and just really in it. You're really entering into the sort of vibrational level, the deeper level, and it's releasing out through the depths, through your body. Your nervous system and your body is sort of the gateway, and so it's not, even if you're passively allowing these things to come up, there has to be kind of an active engagement with it. It's not like a dry witnessing where you just watch it go by. It's not really at that level. It's like a hug. It's a willingness to feel it. And that's what's heroic about this process, is a willingness to feel and to merge with it, to be it. It's like the light has to penetrate the darkness, and the darkness starts to become enlivened, starts to become enlightened. That's a good metaphor. The light and the dark. So you've got the shadow material and you've got the light of your awareness. You are slowly, gently, over time, expanding that, bringing more light, dissolving the darkness from within it. Let me stop that here.